Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's good old Knucklepug. Now, before I get started, let me ask you this. Haven't you ever had some bad times in your life when it comes to elementary school? Well, that's the path I got into, and I want to tell you all about it. So, elementary school is one of the first 7 or 8 years of your learning development. But of course, in some years, there's some students that don't like learning anything. And it's also one of the top 5 painful things I dealt with. Not all of it was bad though, since I also had special needs back in the day. So, let's start off with preschool. Preschool is what I started with first. And since the school in my hometown didn't have one at the time, my mom has to drive me to a preschool which is 15 minutes away from where I live. It was also at a school which my grandpa used to go to. Now, when I first started, I was really scared, and didn't know what to expect from schools either since I was 5 around that time. There were lots of kids there. I think I remember there were like 12 students and 2 teachers. One of them possibly has to be an assistant. Both of those teachers are not really bad either. The only thing that bothers me in preschool is the how to write portion of it. During my earliest childhoods, I used to be ambidextrous, which means you're able to use the right and left hand equally. By the time I started, I didn't know which hand to use. So I used my left hand, and I still use it to this very day. I pretty much got that trait from my grandpa since he also uses his left hand. I do remember a lot of times during snack time that I would always pack a Ziploc baggie full of barbecue chips to class. But since it was a morning class, I just save them for later. And since my old preschool teachers also bring their own snacks for the whole class. Ooh, animal crackers! I'll just save these for later. So yeah, I think that's all I know about my preschool, since I was only there for like 1 semester. So let's move on to the school I've been to since the beginning of my 2nd year of elementary school to my senior year. But I'm only going to be counting my elementary. Kindergarten is almost the same thing as preschool, but this time there's more work. ×2 if I remember. And no, I didn't skip a semester of it. And this time there is an addition in my life, and that is a student aide and a speech therapist. And if I meant a student aide, I didn't mean like a financial aid. What I mean by student aid is this, which who are like teachers except there are helpers for special students. And to that I was one of them. Now speech therapists are also helpers, and what they do is help students to communicate better, or in other times help with their problems. For me, I dealt with various speech therapists. I pretty much dealt with speech therapists ever since the beginning of kindergarten to the end of my junior year. I pretty much do not want to get to that point yet. I kinda had some bad moments with one of my old student aides. One of them being a mother of a high school student, one that's not really bad but not the best, and one that is, well... I'll tell you about her in a different video. So let's talk about the best moments first. First off, has to be Jump-a-thon. In case for some people that don't know, it's some sort of event for a fundraiser, and we do these fun jailbroke type activities. One was saved for last, and it's basically a tug-of-war kind of event. And this kind of jump rope activity I'm not really a fan of because I wasn't really strong, and tugging a rope back and forth just ain't really my thing. Oh, forget it, not gonna happen. There were also some high schoolers that were helping out with it too, pretty much just to watch out for the students. The most amazing thing about Jump-a-thon is when a teacher calls a name and then you get to pick out a prize. Didn't really got much there, but at least I got a foam tube. So the Jump-a-thon was cool and all, but the most bestest thing at school has to be Detention Free. Now Detention Free is some sort of an end of a quarter kind of event, and it starts with either as a movie or some sort of dancing game. Heck, it could even be a field trip for example. In 4th grade, I got the most luck because thank goodness I didn't got any detentions on that year. And there were a couple of detention frees that are not really as good. One of them I didn't really had in mind, but at least the 1st and 4th quarter actually had the best detention frees though. I think it's all I got for the best things. Now let's get on to the dark side. Now, as I mentioned about my old student aides, I know one of them is good, but of course in the middle of it, kinda not really. My first student aide was more of a muzzly person. She also helps with questions that I was stuck at. And as I mentioned, she's also a mother of a high school student back in my day. Now these days he's a husband of my oldest sister. Still though, my first student aide wasn't as bad. She only worked as my student aide for only a couple of years. But during the last year she worked, there was another student aide who was younger, and kinda looked more like a college student. She was a good student aide for a couple of months. But as time moved on, she turned a little bit bossy. And yes, I know, teachers had to be in charge, but what I'm saying is she could be a bit over the mark. She does help students with their homework, however, but not as much as my first student aide did. Like the one time when I was working on a worksheet and was stuck on the write-in answers that I couldn't figure out. And at any time when I want to ask help from her, she always says, "Seriously? It's right on the book. I'm sure you can find it on your own. I bet it'll take you like a few minutes to figure it out." Okay, so write-in answers I can deal with, but if there are hard ones, she can't help but think about it. So sometimes I just write down what I can finish that's easiest and then save the write-ins for last. But even if I do that, sometimes she helps, and sometimes she doesn't. Pretty much in her mind she goes back and forward. It's like her mind's a maze, and it's like the mouse tries to go through it but fails and then tries to do it again for the next day. The next thing that I didn't like was the homework. Homework is the one thing I didn't like since the beginning. And surely yes, I know it's important to finish. But sometimes, it could have really hard answers on it. Like for example, science and social studies. Those were the two school subjects that were so hard, my mind would just go berserk and explode. Wait, is this supposed to be Nuggabug's Storytime video? Hold on a sec. Thanks, Ferris. Yeah, no problem. One of my characters. Anyway, there is some homework that is not actually that bad. Like for example, cursive handwriting. I remember going through it so fast that it's just whoopity whoopity whoop, done. Here you go, teach. All done, finished, and ready to go. Can I play on the computer? Now more stuff that is even harder than homework. That is, tests. They could be easy at first, but once you progress, it could get harder over time. Like as I already mentioned, social studies ain't easy. And of course, if there's spelling, there has to be a test within that too. For me, I couldn't spell very well. Like for example, long words, two words, words that sound like two words, including some that I get confused on since some can sound the same. Now when it comes to social studies, the culture, people, places, and environments I can totally handle studying for. But the rest, not really. I remember that one time during 6th grade that I actually got an F on my report card. I think it was because of the hard test that I took, but I can't really remember what kind of test it was. But at least I got a chance to fix that grade. Because after the last topic that we were learning about, we were going on to our next topic. And that is Ancient Egypt. Now this topic was a topic that I was a fan of, and I enjoyed making lots and lots of Egyptian paintings. I do remember the time that we were making these creative Egyptian-like booklets and learning about every pharaoh in ancient Egypt. And Cleopatra, of course, has to be my most favorite pharaoh. Even though she was the last ruler of Egypt, her history was really interesting, no doubt. Now comes the last thing that I want to tell you, and I'm gonna say about this memory that it's the most unfair in my life as an elementary student. I'm not saying that it's the very most unfair of my life, since I dealt with more other worse moments than this. It was almost the end of my 6th grade year, and my classroom teacher and a special ed teacher came to me and wanted me to come out of the classroom just for like a few minutes, just to tell me what's on the up and up. Can't remember what time, but I believe that it was during resource. Anyway, they told me a few sentences here or there. Even though it was the last quarter and didn't got any detentions on it, I'm still not allowed to go on to detention free. Now, I've already told you about detention free, but of course, there's a downside to it. Let me explain. This was just only in my school back then, by the way. If you only had at least one detention from one of the quarters, you're not allowed to be on the detention free. That's how I thought of it. I think they kind of changed the rules a little bit, and I think that kind of rule change kind of happened when I was in 5th grade. It was still the same rule, but there's an addition to it. And that is if you at least get a detention from the 1st to 3rd quarter, then you're not allowed to go on the detention free on which quarter that you got a detention on. And to add a cherry on top, you're also not allowed to go on to the last quarter detention free. Yeah, have no idea what was with that rule change. But that was just elementary, I guess. So what happens if you don't get a detention free? Well, unlike any detention, it could be a long one. Once a detention free starts, a classroom teacher hands you a packet and you have to stay quiet and keep busy. These packets pretty much include connected dots, multiplication, etc. You know, the basics. Basically, it's just a worksheet packet that keeps you occupied. Anywho, in 6th grade, I only had a couple of detentions. And it's basically from 1st to 2nd quarter. But still, I was tearing up after hearing that news. Even though I never had a detention at 4th quarter, I got excited for nothing. Although I was disappointed, both of those teachers calmed me down and cheered me up, knowing that there's another event that I'm still allowed to go to. And I was also promised to never ruin that chance. And thank goodness I didn't, because it was actually a 6th grade pizza party. At least I get to celebrate on that event, because hey, something's better than nothing. But of course, at the end of the year detention free, I just stay sat down and work on the packet. Well, I guess I couldn't complain that much, because I also had a couple of friends that also had detention on 6th grade. And at least we got recess when we want to take a break from the packets. And also get to hang out with the counselor too. Okay, only I did, but still better than nothing. I don't think it'll be the same as the detention free, but at least it was done and over with from elementary. Well, that's everything I want to show. For now. I think I know there's more to my elementary school, but I just don't think I should put all of it in, since there's some I want to save in other videos. So, make sure to give this video a like if you like it, and you can also leave a comment on what you think about it. And if you want to see more, click on the subscribe button below, or you can click on my icon to see more videos. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you all again in the next video.